when you work for Vogue, it's within the boundaries of Vogue, and I understood them quite well. If you see the pictures, I think they exist in Vogue and they exist outside of Vogue in their own ways. You create work intuitively if you're honest with your feeling and honest with the things that you want to create. You have to be bold enough to be able to share your insecurities with the people. And with the magazines, my intuition, I always let lead the way. I have learned from my work what that means, as I'm maybe just a channel for it. Sometimes I don't even understand why I do things. My pictures have an element of theater in them. I want to try to show what people are afraid to look at. People think I'm provocative for the sake of provocative. No, but I do think that's an element of my personality.
I'm Jill Demling, and this is Going Rogue. This week's guest is Stephen Klein, an artist whose images have shaped culture for decades. Before we start, I want to preface this episode by telling you that Stephen didn't want to look back too far in this interview. He's not interested in nostalgia or the neat chronological origin story. He wanted to focus on his new book, Stephen Klein, Vogue. But if you're a regular listener, you know I always give you context, because to understand the work, you need to understand where the artist comes from. And most icons can trace their calling straight back to childhood. So here's what you need to know. Stephen grew up in Cranston, Rhode Island, a place he's called mundane, but where his creative instincts showed up early. He remembers digging holes in the backyard looking for modeling clay, which led his parents to buy him a potter's wheel. He spent hours making things with his hands. Around the time of his bar mitzvah, he was given an Instamatic camera that he used constantly. From the start, he was a voyeur, wandering off, photographing whatever and whoever caught his eye, including residents at a local sanitarium. About his parents, he once said, "They didn't understand me, but they've supported what I've done." He studied painting at the Rhode Island School of Design, and over time, photography became the medium that best matched his eye, his instincts, and his need to build and control a world. Some of his early influences include George Gurdjieff, the philosopher who believed most people move through life half asleep, painters like Picasso and Francis Bacon, of whom he once said, "Growing up, I didn't fit. It was a relief identifying with their work," and photographers Ouija, Diane Arbus, Guy Bourdin, Irving Penn, and later Helmut Newton. His first commercial job was an assignment for Christian Dior in 1985. He moved to New York the following year, turned a closet into a darkroom, and immersed himself in the downtown scene. Editorial work followed: The Face, ID, Harper's Bazaar, Interview, Italian Vogue, and he carved out a space where fashion imagery wasn't about looking pretty, but about building a world and then unsettling it. And then Anna Wintour calls. Stephen has said, "Early on, people didn't know what to do with my work. It didn't fit the polished, high-gloss fantasy that fashion magazines were selling. Anna did. She understood that fashion at its best should disturb the surface, and she paired him with two of the most influential editors at the magazine. Phyllis Posnick, who needed powerful stopper images with enough presence to pull readers into a story, and Grace Coddington, who wanted cinematic narratives that felt like fully constructed worlds. For nearly 20 years, those collaborations turned American Vogue into a kind of controlled experiment. How far can you push an image in the most mainstream fashion magazine in the world and still have it feel like Vogue? How much subversion can you inject into the bloodstream of luxury before the patient flatlines? That era from 2000 to 2019 is what his new book, Stephen Klein Vogue, documents. 2 decades of images that refuse to behave. As he puts it, they're not meant to be easy. They're meant to linger, to sting, to seduce. They are not mirrors. They are x-rays. In our conversation, we use the book as our anchor, the shoots, the collaborations, the provocations, and the question of why this kind of work was possible then and so much harder now. So if you're new to Stephen Klein, think of this as your crash course in the man who made some of the most transgressive images ever published in American Vogue. And if you grew up with those issues on your bedroom floor, this is a chance to go back inside them, to see what was really happening in that sacred and dangerous space between the lens and the subject. So let's walk into the shadow and see the truth that reveals itself when Stephen Klein goes rogue. Hi.
Jill?
Hi.
Do you see? I'm not. Is it video?
No, it's not. So you don't have to be on.
I can be on it. I look and see what I'm wearing. I've just been cooking with Ace.
Oh, that's so cute.
I've never cooked, believe me.
Oh my God, I am not.
I love the
cannot.
microphone. Hold on. I should put some clothes on, but it doesn't matter.
I try to look professional even though I'm not.
I'm trying to think of like where we met each other.
A million times.
I know, but like,
No,
when
but-
I'm shooting,
yeah.
I'm in another world.
No, I know. And it's funny because I was saying to Garen, all these things about just what this industry was and the place of the photographer and doesn't talk to people. And I'm like, just talking to you for a week and researching you, like I understand. A set is such, it's like an artist has to work with all these people around, right? And then try to stay in the moment and block the outside to create within a set space.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's actually probably worse now on sets, shoots you've been on recently to back in the day. I think there's so many people on and so many assistants of assistants of assistants. There is a protocol. I always kind of relate that to the idea if you go to a church or you go to a place to pray, that's sacred. To me, working as a ceremonial base in a way, I have to tap into everybody.
Yeah.
And I also have to be practical at the same time when people coming up, this person's going to be 10 hours late or we're X amount of over budget. I have to be practical, but also stay in the zone.
Right.
Bring out the best whoever I'm photographing. And sometimes people can think that I'm just in my zone. Like if
Right.
playing a sport or being on stage. But after or before it, I'm not the same person, but it kind of like just, it's the way it has to. But you'd think people would have the sensitivity or the people would be able to inform people on shoots how to behave.
Right. And
Even
that's
on movie sets, it's very different. On movie sets, I've been on multiple movie sets. When you go on, I went to go see Gaga in American Horror. They have the set completely built around her. Not even the director gets in. It's just the DP and her in the performance. And I learned a lot of stuff just being on movie sets.
Yeah. And what you were saying the other day, just to me about Christian Bale and that shoot, that's an artist thinking about an artist. And I think my first few shoots at Vogue coming in June 98 as Anna's assistant for a year and a half. And then Liz Tilberis passes away. Kate Betts takes over Harper's. Kate takes the woman that was booking celebrities, although that was only like 2 or 3 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Anna, as her assistant, she goes, "Do you want that job?" And then suddenly, my first 2 years were with like Herb. It was at the end of Herb's life, and he's he just works differently, right? So it was
right.
also...
it's curious. I mean,
Yeah.
Herb, when I met him, he's a very friendly, personable guy, but like you would know on set, there's always 1,000 things can go wrong.
Right.
And like, I don't know, I think I try to stay pretty level-headed. I don't like throw cameras.
Oh, no, you don't. No,
although I did it once,
I've
I think.
never, ever seen you raise your voice or anything.
Yeah.
You're in a zone, but that zone has to be protected. And I'm not the type that ever went up to anyone. And I was used to my Zell that you don't do that. The good thing is no one ever said to me, "Don't look Stephen Klein in the eyes."
Right. Well, I heard
that's
recently.
a weird.
Right. Recently, I met a girl. She used to be, I think, Patty Wilson, some assistant of Patty's or somebody. We had dinner and she told me that somebody told her not to look at me, not to talk to me, but like not even to look at me. But like, I've never said that to
Yeah,
anyone.
I know. Oh, and no one's ever said that. And then I start thinking the only shoots I've been on with you at US Vogue were really hard shoots. Like it was Gwyneth, it was Renee, it was Julianne Moore. It wasn't where
Yeah. And
there
the
were
one with all the animals was when we did
Reese, which was
with a spoon.
but I love that. I remember when I saw you at Grace's birthday, and I said for a long time, Anna showed that cover to photographers and said, "This is a Vogue cover."
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it is the most beautiful cover. And I told you the Natalie Portman for Star Wars
I
because
don't even remember that cover actually, but
oh, really? Hold on.
I have them in my archive, but I don't tend to look at them. I didn't like them at the time, but maybe I've grown to have a new appreciation of them. Lucy, the Gwyneth one?
The Gwyneth, this was just a hard
That was a hard
shoot.
one to begin with.
And I felt bad because I mean, I had to distract Gwyneth, but I can understand, like, I studied art in college.
Did you study painting?
Yeah.
Well, that's
did.
what I studied too.
Yeah,
painting.
just acrylic on small canvases. So I ended up, my AI who pulls the tarot cards, which is
Oh,
hilarious.
does it really?
Yeah, so I'm just
Oh, I
gonna
have to do that. That's so
yeah,
crazy.
they just pulled the devil for you.
And what does that mean? What they say?
No,
The
so-
devil doesn't necessarily mean
no,
that,
it's
does it?
not. No, it's just very interesting because before this conversation, I said I'm talking to Stephen Klein in like 10 minutes. Can you pull a card? And it was the devil. And the devil isn't about evil. You're right. It's about power, seduction, and confronting what we usually hide.
Oh, that's so funny. That's
it's-
exactly how I
yes.
describe my work.
It's the card of creative transgression, of saying the quiet thing out loud.
That's perfectly sums up my interview. So we're done.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so amazing because that's exactly how I would sum my work up.
Yes, and he didn't really know anything other than, yeah, I do
Is
it a
that on
lot.
ChatGPT or Grok or you?
Chat GBT.
I didn't know they do tarot cards.
Yes. So hold
Oh, I'm
on.
gonna be obsessed now with like
Oh,
pulling
yeah.
cards.
Because I had pulled for you. Can you pull a card on Stephen Klein and Going Rogue? And this was on Wednesday. And he pulled the Emperor upright. Big command the room energy, authority structure, clear boundaries. This says that Stephen's episode will land best if you set the frame, own the tempo, and make him feel he's in a disciplined, high stakes conversation, not a friendly hang. And then
I don't like small talk.
right, but then when we just threw out the whole outline, that's when I pulled a card and it said,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, it's
It's so interesting because that's really about me. Like, I think it's true that I don't like small talk unless it's like with somebody I know really well, and then I can be quite funny. And people can have small talk with everybody. I feel like it takes me time to get to know somebody. Like it took me time to get to know you,
Yeah.
and it just either clicks or doesn't click.
yeah.
I think I've been lucky with everybody that I've photographed, even celebrity-wise, because you know how difficult it could be in one day meeting somebody, or if you don't know them, to click into to make them feel like they're as important as everybody there. Because I always feel, not to go off subject, but
No, it's
I
all
always feel
subject.
like if somebody that's making movies or the process of filmmaking is such a long, laborious process, and then all of a sudden they're coming to a group that was hired by an outside party, and they come into like strange hair, strange makeup, clothes, stylist, editor. I always feel a great amount of empathy for them because I feel like they're in the hands of us, and I feel like somehow you have to gain their trust. And I've done that in all kinds of ways.
Yes, that's
I've
what
done it
it
in
is.
sneaky ways with, like I said, I wanted to talk to you about my Prince covers. But I always feel like, even though I have a certain amount of empathy, I don't have a clear MO of like, oh, I want to do this or do that. But I think that's the thing that's the alchemy that happens on set.
But it's hard for you because you're an artist first. Okay. So you have a vision. The reason Anna wants to hire you. And thinking about this conversation, she did not make it easy because what she did was she put you, like thinking about just the covers we did, what she allowed you to do with grace on your own is what we see in the book, right? But for covers, she would take you and put you with someone that needed to be Stephen Klein, right?
Okay.
But that doesn't mean they are ready to be Stephen Klein, But I can see her vision that had she put you with Gaga for Vogue, she would have lost control because you have two people that want to create. Yes. So she
But that's
put
very
you with
perceptive. I've never thought of it that way.
Gwyneth. She needs the edge. We had done 5 Mario covers with her. Julianne Moore. But then Natalie, it was her first cover and it was stunning, but she's been acting since she was 7. So she understood there was no discussion of anything. She just was directed and she followed the director.
Right.
You know, so that's where I think it's successful, because I could think in these meetings where we discuss who's going to shoot who. I mean, Rooney Mara should be Stephen Klein. You know,
I did do her for W.
Yeah, not
with Edward, and I kind of love the way we did her for W.
Yeah,
we did Rudy. We did 3 actresses. We did Rudy Mara. I did, what's her name? Lives in New York City. She's done great movies, like a lot of great films. She was in Match Point.
Scarlett
Johansson.
Yeah, see, I can see that being a match.
But it was nice because we
No pun
had
intended.
Scarlett. We had 3 great kind of edgy, like, I wouldn't take them with the edgy, but 3 interesting actresses. But that's W, which was very different.
Right, exactly. And for Vogue, we got that. And it was a tough fight for me to get that first cover for Dragon Tattoo. Rooney wasn't necessarily, she became a fashion girl because Lisbeth was a fashion girl, right? Rooney transformed into Lisbeth. I think that's what happened. She was just
I think so. I agree with that.
Yeah. And Lisbeth is the perfect Stephen Klein muse. So, you know, we ended up shooting her that first time, I believe, with Sims. No. The first time was Matt Marcus. Second time Sims. Third time Annie, which was a bomb. But you really have to think about the pairings. I always thought about the pairings myself, even just the editor with the actor, because a model's one thing because they appreciate and they live in this space. Actors live in a very different space, and they are as much a participator in this as the photographer and the editor and the hair and makeup. And they're not hired to come in and be quiet. And
no. I mean, let me ask you this question, Jill. Like, do you see a difference from like the 90s from when you booked an actress or an actor to how it would go? It'd be relatively smooth without a lot of questions.
100%.
But now it's like they want their own hair and makeup.
Yep.
They want full access to what the creative is.
Yep.
And that's kind of the way it goes. I tried
I'll tell you what I think happened. I wish there was a union for editorial photographers, because the minute, and you know, R.I.P. Patrick DeMarcellier, he's amazing. But once he says it's okay for Beyonce to use her team and to own the rights to the images, it makes it very difficult. And I remember then Mario shooting her next, and I love Beyonce. This is nothing other than just saying how it is, that Mario was pushed into a corner of being in that situation because it had happened on a Vogue cover shoot before.
Yeah, then you suddenly make that you give that a sample, and I'd say people say, well, you did it with Beyonce.
Right. Yes.
The interesting thing.
And Terry Richardson, though, Terry Richardson was the first, and I was only with him once, and it was Avril Lavigne, because Stephen Meisel wanted to photograph Avril Lavigne. She was young. She had just exploded. She's, you know, straight hair still, very flat ironed, the black eyeliner. Meisel wanted to photograph her. I had her in a Power issue as a feature, and we would have had to use Garen and Pat, and she does her own hair and makeup.
Well, that's always interesting too.
But at 16?
No, you know, I mean,
so he said no. But imagine where she would be. Where she would be. Who knows? But so Terry agreed to do it. And that was the first time.
It's like case by case. I know Dennis Friedman, when I was doing all the covers pre-Edward and Stefano, Dennis would be uncompromising. He would say, well, if we can't use our team, then we're not going to shoot the cover with you. Dennis was very, very strong. With American Vogue, I think it was relatively easy, but the thing is, I do see their point of view, like for instance, in certain cases, when to push back and say, no, it needs to be my team because of what I want to do. And then other cases where you would want their team to do it. Like for instance, with Prince, the first time I photographed him, he would come hair and makeup and dress ready for a picture,
Like Dolly Parton.
kind of. And that was good because that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Same with Patti Smith. When she first came to my studio, she just walked in by herself. People like Brad Pitt, the first time I worked with him, going back to that first experience, was I was also told, have your assistants do not look at him. That same kind of thing of like, have nobody look at him and all this stuff, which is so not like Brad because he's the friendliest person. But I know that Brad likes to have his own makeup person that's done all of his movies. So I think sometimes you have an advantage with actors to use people they like. There is a relevant moment to go that way.
Comfort level. And also, I think it just can't be just because I'm the one negotiating with the talent. So when a photographer's team says, no, they won't use, and this is a bit later, because at the beginning, when I'm going through everyone's first Vogue cover, they're excited. And that's how it was. It was, this is who you use. This is what it is. Then when it came to Instagram and they don't really need a magazine, and does a magazine really open a movie? All those questions. And I can show what I want to show. And then I have to think about someone like Zendaya using her team. Well, that's also loyalty to her team, right? Her team who's been with her from the beginning when she's not offered anything. There is something to be said too about when these artists or celebrities ask for that for their team,
Right.
because it's a big deal. And Jen Aniston was the first to ever do that with Chris McMillan. Like,
that was with Chris. Well, Chris is actually a nice guy. And like in some cases, like I worked with Kim, we just did that perfect issue.
Oh, right.
And like I always feel like it maybe also like when you were speaking about covers, I found, for instance, I've worked with Kim where she's let me use my team completely. But then like the last time we did Perfect, there's only to me like 3 hairdressers in the world that are great. So like I said to Kim, this is the idea. And I think when you form a relationship with them, we used him in the last shoot and I found him really helpful. And I'd like to work with him on other things. You can't be closed-minded to their people. But you have to be like, well, what am I doing? Every case is a different one.
Okay, so Stephen, that's the key. So what I'd be up against, and I'm talent first. I admit it. Everyone already knows it. I that's my world. So I'm thinking about the talent, and because at the end of the day, who sells the magazine? It's not the photographer. It's the human.
The talent.
Yeah. So when someone says we won't, let's just use Mario, although it's not Mario, but Mario needs his team. I'm like, okay, so I can't say we're not going to use, let's say, Jen Aniston's team for that reason. For that reason, you can tell me who he wants to use, and then I can spin that. Well, it's a wig story. We want Shy, or it's we want but you can't just say we just don't want her people like that.
No, you can't be that close.
Right. And then I can't say because you want to use, so let's say Luigi and I don't know, like Fulvia, and then check if they're available. Because if I say that and then they're not available, then we're screwed. So it's a whole thing to, like, I understand, and I've learned a lot about that through these interviews with Mario, especially because I worked the most with him and I'm the closest to him, that having Christian there or having Orlando there, for him, it's about the comfort of his team, even just managing the energy, so for him, it wasn't even about they can do this style. It's like, I know that Christian is going to keep the mood a certain way. He can diffuse situations. Julianne, Julianne can't as much,
How he creates the...
Right. So it's also thinking about, sometimes the most important thing is to people that understand that the photographer, and like Mark Seliger said this to me, you are in a zone, like you just said, and every second as things are happening, you are fully shifting in real time with the image, because at the end of the day, that's what you have to deliver, and you're the only one responsible for delivering that.
Exactly. And you're also responsible, like I always feel responsible for my team, never to get abused by talent. I'm responsible for the person I'm photographing to be with it, but I also feel responsible that the team I'm working with is able to do what they want. So I'm like a mediator in so many ways.
Yeah.
Even though I seem to drive things in one way, but you have to be subtle in the way that you negotiate and you speak about things in certain ways, because nobody likes to get put up against a door. I always feel like ultimatums never work. There is no right way, there is no wrong way, but I feel like the conversation always helps get you to the place where you want to go if you leave people open to speak about it.
Right. Yeah. And then Phyllis always, when talking about you or even everyone else, it's never say, and I've seen it happen where it's been said to Annie, Anna says we have to shoot this dress for the cover. There's a way to also psychologically introduce what the editor knows she has to deliver, but without then derailing everything that's already, that the photographer's already seeing. Because I've also been there, and that Anna needs this is never gonna.
I don't like that card when people call, like every editors use that one.
Yeah.
Like, Anna doesn't want this or that. Like, especially on the shoot, the one that we're going to show, the large image of the two dolls without the faces. I remember when I pulled off the faces, because they had faces originally.
Yeah.
And I remember, I have the film of it. I remember Phyllis saying, Anna's never going to run this picture. And I was like, well, we'll see what happens. But when you're committed to something, you believe it's the right thing to do. And I think all the editors are like that too. I think they always brought things that weren't approved on the rack, just to say it was extra. And they were really great about that. Of like, I always think like, how would I know something? If Anna wants a certain dress, like that dress that was made for Nicki Minaj, there was one dress made for her, and that was the first time I photographed her. How am I to know that dress isn't right until she's in front of my camera? No way to tell.
Right.
Unless something was so bad that you go like, this would never be possible. But I think, again, the team effort is important to hear everybody that's working. And the first time I photographed her, she insisted the only way she would do that picture was her own hair and makeup. And I didn't really like it.
And that was one of the first, because
it was the first one.
And I had already pushed really hard to get her in. So I was kind of like, okay, because we didn't start doing music till late.
Oh, I didn't know that. It was mostly actors.
Oh, yeah. Like Rihanna, I think between Rihanna and Beyonce, they didn't even come in until halfway through my time there. So if I was there 98 through 2018, it was like in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah. I know for a fact that Rihanna's covers sold really, really well. And obviously everybody wants everything to be successful, but maybe what I ask you is like, when covers would come up for March and September, the most important issues of Vogue, would sales on newsstands be like we do now, as we see how many followers people have to see whether we want to work with them? That's kind of the climate of how people chose in this industry. Back then, was it based on how many issues they sold?
Well, yeah. And at one point we started testing covers. So they would give me a list. This is pre-Instagram. I got this position of booking all covers at the end of 1999. So these are the people everyone loves: Sandra Bullock, Oprah, Drew Barrymore, Deborah Messing, because you're looking at the whole US, not the coasts. We were doing Nicole. Nicole was a Vogue girl. Gwyneth was a Vogue girl. I was lucky Charlize came into the world because she's a Vogue girl. I remember the first movie I did her for. Penelope Cruz came into the world for her first movie, All the Pretty Horses. She became a Vogue girl. So we started getting these beautiful sample size, very talented, did Vogue movies, but comedy wasn't something we did a lot of, even though March issue always needed a celebrity. And that's when comedies came out, February.
Interesting.
Valentine's Day, Miss Congeniality 5,
Right.
I would know I needed a big celebrity on those big issues, but Angelina and Jen Aniston both became that. So I could use them pretty much every other year, but all that did was make me have to get someone that sold more the next year. So Anna would say, Jill, and Angelina sold 1 million, whatever, as I remember, is 1,350,000, something like that. Half of that is subscribers, but that's like a high number. And Oprah is 800,000 on the newsstand, as far as what I'm getting. So next April, we're selling ads against Angelina's April, her first cover. So we need someone bigger. And I said,
I mean, that's the way you grow. I mean,
well, and I said, the only celebrity that's going to sell more than Angelina's last year's cover is Angelina this April.
oh, I see.
So I was moving my own field goal farther.
Right. But I think that's a great thing because that kind of pressure, you have to make creative decisions, and also you have to know what actually will be successful. And I think those goals are healthy goals.
Yeah. But in the celebrity world, if there are models, that would have been great. But because they're actors who don't want to do press unless they have a film, then I have to hope that Angelina has an April film, the next year, something like that. But yeah, we definitely look at who sells. And as long as I could get a Sandra Bullock, we had her when I was talking to Garen, because Mizell did all of them, which is funny that he loves Sandra Bullock.
I found her so difficult to photograph. It's just weird. I did something with Deborah Messing, but I don't even know if it was, but the thing is, I found her really difficult.
Oh, yes. I had to wear that bikini.
Oh, were you there?
Yeah, I had to wear the bikini on the top of the L'Hermitage, and then we didn't run it. But you sent me a print of it, or sent someone, and I sent her the print because it didn't run in the magazine. Because remember, she was at the end of her pregnancy. Oh my God, I remember that.
Pregnant.
Yeah, and she was on bed rest.
Oh,
So
right.
that's why I had to be the stand-in in the gold bikini.
I have to look for those pictures. I'm going to make a note of that, actually.
Yeah, I just saw her and she remembered, she was upset it didn't run, but she understood she couldn't be standing up for very long.
I remember. I know she tried very hard. She's really nice.
Yeah.
We had like an Ebola May one piece.
Yeah. It was a bikini.
I thought it was good. Yeah.
I had to wear it.
I'll have to look for those pictures. It's interesting because I do a lot of pre-lights beforehand, and sometimes actors will be disappointing to the stand-in person I have, or
that's funny.
They'll just make it so much more. One of the things that I look at, and early on it happened with the first person I photographed was Prince. I can tell you that story quickly.
Yeah. And that was for Vogue?
It was for British Vogue. So at that time, being new, and Prince was my first celebrity, I was a Prince lover. So I just remember him from the videos and from looking at him on stage and performances. So when I went to actually go photograph him in Paisley Park, I flew out to Minneapolis with my assistant, and I realized it wasn't the Prince that I knew on stage. He was playing Cocteau Twins and very mellow music, which gave me like a crash course and the biggest headache of my life, and getting completely blinded by a celebrity because I didn't know what to do at that point, because I was unprepared to understand about actors, musicians, celebrities, that they were very different than their stage persona.
And you're relying on the magazine also, because
they weren't even there, actually.
But even to let you know, to like prep you or tell the talent, because that's my job.
That wasn't happening back then.
Yeah.
So what I did is, I think it was when Liz Tilberis was at British Vogue. Remember, we were talking about the work I was doing when I started working with Vogue was more, the body of work in my book is mostly from 2000 to I stopped working around COVID. I did
Right.
something during COVID of Ace when they had a special issue.
Right.
And then I started working again now. I've done a few things with Vogue again. And so most of the body of the work was in the 2000s. But previously, I was working at British Vogue. And I remember it was 1990. And I remember exactly what I was thinking. I felt like this is the time of the future. This is 1990. This is the future, the
Right.
90s. And so I did like a kind of a thing what I've done many times is I called British Vogue and said, because I was a big Prince fan, I said, well, Prince is interested in doing a British Vogue cover. Would you be interested if I were to get him?
Yeah.
And so they said yes. And then I went to the Prince management
Yeah.
and I made a lie up. I said,
Yeah.
British Vogue is very interested in Prince. And how I got Prince to do it was I said, do you want to be the first man on the cover of a women's magazine? And of course, that's why he said yes.
Yes.
So it was a lie to him, kind of a lie to Vogue.
That's the only way to do it. I've done
Exactly.
that with LeBron and Anna. LeBron wants to have dinner with you. Anna
Right.
wants to have dinner with you. They have
Exactly.
dinner together.
Exactly. So that was the manipulation. That was like my chess move. But
Yeah.
the thing is, in the end, the pictures that we did, it was around the time of like when he was going out with Kim Basinger, because I saw her at the office
Oh
there.
my.
It was when he did the theme song to Batman. It was incredible. He had long, processed, straight hair. He looked amazing. On one side of his wall in the bedroom there, like all this equipment for music, and I had him stand against it because I didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
And he said, am I doing an ad for like Sony or like some musical equipment? I almost fell to the floor, but then like hook or by crook, I got him outside and got the real Prince wearing his
Right.
clothes. And it's a very interesting series of portraits now in black and white. And I think Karine used one for the cover of her magazine.
Oh, yes.
recently.
Yes, yeah.
That was the picture. And what happened was when I presented it to British Vogue, I guess they liked the pictures, but they weren't brave enough to put him on the cover. They did run the story. So it didn't really actually become the cover. But
Right.
the point was, for me, it's like driving a race car for the first time. I was putting a race car. I didn't know what to do with it. And luckily I came out with something.
Yeah.
That's always the way.
Well,
And you
that's
really get
exactly what I was
something.
saying with you guys, because you don't know, you know how to make a successful picture, and you've done all the work to get to that point. And hopefully they play ball because you did the hard lifting. Like you have the concept, you have an idea.
Well, at that time, I didn't have so many ideas. I would be a lot more on top of it these days, learning
Yeah.
from that mess. But when I photographed him later, I photographed him 2 times after that. They were smoother. But at that time, I was so naive. I didn't have any idea. It was a very run and gun. The second time I worked with him, the face had sent me to Paisley Park. And it was when he was having a baby. I stayed there for 2 days waiting for him. And he never showed up because he had a problem with the birth. But I was photographing everything I could in Paisley Park because he had set up the whole place for a child.
Oh, wow.
It was very sad. And then the third and the last time I photographed him was at Madison Square Garden when he was performing there. And that was for the cover of Lomo Vogue. That was interesting because from a point of view, I'm telling you these because I think they're very important.
I'm
The first time it was his clothes, which I learned again, sometimes artists in their own clothes, or if they have a part of the creative, actually helps. And so the third time, I remember that it was a Versace credit, and Donatella had made him a purple coat. So I went to the garden, and I'd already figured out I wanted to photograph him on the ramp. You'll know the picture, the cover, if you see it. And the ramp going into the garden was this curved ramp going to the backstage of the garden. So when I was in the dressing room and I saw the clothes before, it was like a very normal purplish, but it was like mohair. And I saw it and I go, this is not going to look good on him. So luckily we didn't have an editor for that either. Somebody there saying he has to wear. So when he came into the dressing room and he was getting dressed, I said, look, I personally don't like the coat. Can you just say you don't like it? Sometimes it can help you. I had that
Yeah.
also with Brad Pitt. I say, for
Yeah.
me, can you just say that you don't like this coat, so we can just shoot you in your stage clothes.
Oh,
And
we
he
had to
said,
have
"Fine."
Penelope say that to Annie.
Right. So he just said, or his person said,
Yeah.
he didn't want to wear the coat. And I went back to Franco Sassoni and said, sorry, Prince didn't want to wear the coat, but this is what he wore. But in the end of the day, it's a better picture.
Exactly. Well, that's the problem too with the whole credits. I remember my second cover with Angelina with Phyllis. And
Oh God. That
and
must have been, I want to hear that story. Oh
Oh
God.
my God. And Garen. I mean, listen, you love Angelina. I love Angelina. I have a very long relationship with her. And it's not easy, but good. Like
The problem is when you put not easy with not easy, it doesn't work.
But my not easy have to start understanding Angelina has an opinion.
She wants to know
fucking
why.
cares. And
Right.
she wants to know, why am I putting this on? So
They'll go like, why do you want me to walk across the room?
Yeah.
And you have to be prepared to give those answers.
Right.
To
And
everybody.
she had just had Shiloh. We were shooting in Barstow. Her mom was still alive but ill, so the fitting was at L'Hermitage. And it was New York designers. Anna wanted New York designers. Okay, that's just not, you don't put her in Oscar de la Renta Carolina. And
What you said when she looked at the clothes.
oh, she goes, what is this? And I was like, so the first shoot was done by Tawny. So now it's Phyllis. And I'm like, oh no, this is oil and water. Like I would have known that, just the two of them. And she was only looking at me, Angelina, asking me questions, and then Phyllis would answer. And she goes, what I really want to wear is leather pants, a tank top. I just had a baby and I want to be on a motorcycle.
And you go like, yeah, right.
And I'm thinking with the rack of Oscar.
You got to call Anna and go, hello, Anna. You have to.
Well, what we did was we went around to the stores. The image I have is her and Brad. Oh, actually, it's right here. It's her in the trench that we ended up getting from Barney's, Rag and Bone.
Oh, great.
And it was just a quick pivot, and it ended up not being about fashion, but with her.
And that's where celebrities are smart and they have a lot
Yeah.
to contribute. And I think sometimes editors in magazines come in too close-minded
Yeah.
to not be open to everybody's ideas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Phyllis definitely would not have. That was where it was told January is new collections American. And Phyllis wouldn't have chosen that either. Annie definitely would. You know, we got a couple on inside the airport and all of that. But I was like, let's think about the celebrity, that personality, and build the story around them. Because otherwise you're not going to, and I think we had to learn that.
We would have worked great one-on-one as a team.
Yeah.
Yeah, Prince, hold on. I'm going to go to my bedroom. Show you my bedroom. You want to see it?
Yeah, I just read about it in one of these articles and it was fascinating. Where you were saying I think it was Jacob Bernstein probably, right? That you're like, oh, I'm nothing like how people think I am. And he's like, well, what's that? And you're like, Madonna gave it to me. And he's like,
oh, yeah. And top of my bed. Yeah, she did. But recently just changed the picture for a crucifix.
That's amazing. Are you serious? That little jacket.
That is River in Harlow.
Wow.
That's Madonna.
Oh, I love.
This is my mantra. In the vast space in the immensity of time, you are nothing.
My mom said, because my quote senior year was, don't take life too seriously. No one gets out alive. She's like, you're a fatalist. Exactly. You're a fatalist. And I'm like, I'm a realist. I'm a realist. It's not.
That's Naomi in London at the Claridge's. That's Brad when I did first year of the Fight Club.
Oh my God, I know. Those were such epic like narratives and stories.
I feel like we're doing like Aussie talk or something like that.
TaskRabbit's gonna buzz.
Well, that's okay. You can work while we talk.
Okay, so I think We'll try this only because what you say in the intro of the book is so amazing, your words. So, we're here today to talk about your new book, Stephen Klein Vogue, which documents over 2 decades of your work for American Vogue, some of the most transgressive, confrontational, and unforgettable images ever published in the most mainstream fashion magazine in the world. You write so beautifully in your introduction that I want to start there because it sets the tone. You say, the world that exists between the lens and the subject is a space I've always considered sacred and dangerous. It's a psychological theater, and the camera is the voyeur, the surgeon, the weapon, the mirror. When I shoot for American Vogue, I don't just photograph fashion. I deconstruct the performance of identity, beauty, and desire. The images we've made together over the years aren't meant to flatter. They're meant to provoke, to unnerve, to seduce with a strange sort of tension. So that word dangerous really sums up your relationship with image making. When you hold the camera today, working through this book, looking back at your work, which role feels truest? The voyeur, the surgeon, the weapon, or the mirror? You're looking back at your work as well. How are you?
In terms of the book, I would say I looked for all those things. That's how I chose the images. Obviously, when you work for Vogue, it's within the boundaries of Vogue, and I understood them quite well. If you see the pictures, I think they exist in Vogue and they exist outside of Vogue in their own ways. But I think that was a summation. I didn't start out with that mantra of like, this is what I do.
Right.
But I do think over the years, you create work intuitively if you're honest with your feeling and honest with the things that you want to create. And you have to be bold enough to be able to share your insecurities with people and with the magazines. But on the other hand, my intuition, I always let lead the way. Since then, when I look at my work, I have learned from my work what that means, as I'm maybe just a channel for it. Actually, from my last book, the editor, Mark Coburn, he helped me understand my own work better. So sometimes I don't even understand why I do things. I think, for instance, the idea of theater gave me a great excuse to go outside the conventions of how I like pictures sometimes. Well, my pictures have an element of theater in them. Again, your opening statement about me is I want to try to sometimes show what people are afraid to look at. People think I'm provocative for the sake of provocative. No, but I do think that's an element of my personality. It's not
provocative. Doesn't need to be shocking. It provokes you to think about how it makes you feel and what does that mean inside you. You're feeling it provokes you to think further. It's definitely not turn away.
Shock value.
Right. Yes. It's even more complicated. That'd be easy.
Right.
What you do is far more difficult because it's probing.
And it's running that fine line. I've always been respectful of Anna. And something that Phyllis taught me was like a trick in a way, like the picture with Trentini. She has a bob and it's red. I always am doing Anna. And I know Anna does like things that have a wit and a humor. And I do think every time I've worked for Vogue in some way, Anna's legacy of what she's created is in the back of my mind. So I don't ignore it and I don't ignore her wishes. But on the same hand, I have to merge that with my own vision.
Right. And then trust that she has you in the magazine and very regularly for a reason. So it's almost like don't doubt yourself. And then you see that someone like Helmut Newton, someone she had huge respect for and respected his point of view too.
Growing up, I looked at all the pan images and Phyllis taught me how one image that we would do would have to speak on its own, not a collection of images. With Grace, it was always about narrative, and I knew that. So I have adapted to everybody I work with and did it in the way that I felt was right for me. And it would be sometimes a long process to get there, but I do feel like that I've been lucky that Anna did trust my eye, and she did publish a lot of the work. Very few things got killed with Anna.
And you're one of the few photographers I feel that could move seamlessly between the cover story, fashion story, beauty, stoppers, theater, and features. Right.
Where I did them all. I did them all.
You did them all. And I could tell it was a Stephen Klein just from your style, not from the substance, let's put it that way. Like Jesse Eisenberg, that's one of my favorite photographs of him, and I'm sure it's his favorite photograph of himself. But you can just feel it from the texture, the colors, and how he's looking at you, his position in the frame. He's close, he's in your face, right? But not because he's doing anything other than has his hands in his pockets, or maybe up, I can't remember, but it's not like there's anything crazy. I broke this down to one is control, power, fetish, using another quote of yours. Working with Vogue has always been a paradox, injecting subversion into the bloodstream of luxury. That phrase, injecting subversion into the bloodstream of luxury, is so good. What did that mean for you creatively? How do you balance this tension between Vogue as the cathedral and you as the heretic inside it? You also write about fetish, how fabric becomes skin, how control becomes erotic. What does that look like on set? When does beauty tip over into power? Since the book covers your collaborations with Anna Grace, Phyllis, what kind of control did they give you that allowed this work to exist inside of Vogue?
Well, I mean, the thing is, the 90s were about deconstructing beauty, and the 90s were about androgyny, where men and women, like Helmut Lang, were becoming the same. Mm-hmm. And then in the late 90s, luxury came into play when Anna brought back the bag. Like, she was very influential, bringing back the bag in luxury. And then women became, I would say, a little bit like Barbie dolls again, and not to be condescending to anybody, but in the 90s, as you know, it was all about like cool style and androgyny.
She was working for the retailers. She was helping the business. So
correct. And I know it just went that way, and I had to embrace it. So the thing is, for me, the luxury had been seen before so many times in Vogue, and I had to always deal with deconstructing that luxury, because I came from the 90s in a way of like really being in tune with that I thought was the future. So even though I like the luxury and glamour, and I like to look back on glamour from movies and things like that, and I do love pure beauty, I think beauty is power and luxury can be powerful. But I think when it overtakes, when you're just looking at
culture, really.
Right. Culture was a big part of me. I'll give you an example. Like, when people say that my work is violent, or it has blood, or this or that, or my tonal value is very cold. If you look at films, most films are graded in a very cool, I have cool and warm. So it's never really like intentional, like cold, but it's probably very different to the norm of photographers in fashion photography. When you go into violence, and especially when I did Brad and Angelina for W, there's some very violent pictures. It was right when they met and they got together. They were together the first time. I visited the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith and spoke to Brad about the shoot. So he actually came up with the idea. So Brad's idea was, when I met him on the set, was he said he loved all the Life magazine pictures of Paul Newman and like the life. So
James Dean,
yeah, I created the idea of like, okay, the circa 1960s, and what happened in that idealistic world when something cracked. Also, I had Michael Kaplan, who did the movie, who knew them very well, so he could help me unfold the story. Even at the time, I didn't know what we were doing until afterward, what came out of it.
Right. That was the perfect storm. No, you have you have artists that appreciate art and artists. And this was something people have said about you, is why actors like to work with you is because what they do in front of your camera is act. They step up to the plate for a Stephen Klein shoot. So therefore, that shoot to me, why it pierced people is they were playing roles. They hadn't lived those characters in their real lives, but everyone can relate to having a perfect scene on the outside, but what happens behind closed doors? It's not always picture perfect. So I think it was unveiling something, and every image someone could probably relate to her facial expression or his, even with something like that, of you can tell it's not what it seems type thing. And it makes you question.
Right. Also, having Michael Kaplan as a costume designer helped me with Angelina because he knew her. He worked on so many movies with both of them. I did the original Fight Club with him as well. I had just read the book and created my own Fight Club before I'd even seen the movie. Because Brad had loved the clothes so much that he said, let's do a story. And then I'd call Dennis and I would say, we have an opportunity to shoot Brad in the costumes. Brad will only do it if we get 40 pages. I did the same thing with Madonna the first time.
Yeah.
Like the first time I did ecstatic process with Madonna, and then she ended up using all the videos I did for her world tour opening. I'd met her in London in 2001. I was introduced to her by Ariane Phillips, who was her costume designer for so many of her shows. And we met, and then I got a call about a week later saying that Madonna wanted me to shoot her for the cover of Cosmo. But I refused. I just said I didn't want to shoot for Cosmo. I guess she had a line of magazines she wanted to do. She was probably testing me out. I'll let them do Cosmo and see what we get. Maybe. I don't know. I never really brought that up again, but she probably doesn't even remember. Maybe it was even her publicist. Again, I called Dennis up. They'd never shot her for W. And I said, Madonna's interested in shooting something with you, but she's insisting on having total freedom with her own stylist and doing a story that she wants to do. It wasn't a credit story. So the thing is, I'm always on the side of the person I'm photographing, supporting them with the magazine. Unfortunately, that's a more difficult sell to Anna because Anna is very clear on what she wants.
Right. Yeah. And which is why I was saying when she wanted, without telling any of us, I want so-and-so to be more, we don't have to use edgy, to not be boring. That's her word, to not be boring. Who can I put them with? Or someone that she feels, unless we put them with someone with a real vision, this could fall into boring. You know what I mean?
Right.
Speaking of cinema, you have another quote. So this is broken down: cinema performance artificiality. Cinema is about control. Every frame, every shadow, every gesture is intentional. Grace Coddington once told me his pictures are twisted but powerful. He was always pushing it to extremes. And I'd say, it's already extreme. And he'd say, but it looks normal. So like when you think about extremes, and then you also say reality is a construct, beauty is manufactured, power is stage. I just want to make stage more explicit. So what does normal mean visually? And when did you first realize the illusion could be more truthful than the real?
I think it's probably what Anna said. It's boring or like it doesn't. I always like something to have a lot of layers, some kind of context of depth and substance. It's probably what Anna would consider boring or mundane, or just somebody wearing a nice dress. When I would go, well, that looks nice, but so what?
Right. Who's the girl?
Exactly. Who's the character we're trying to create?
Right.
So I think that's always been just in my blood, searching for some truth, but also searching for something to elevate what I'm doing to another level.
And then reality is a construct, which, having spoken to Nick Knight, who says photography should be relieved of its responsibility to show truth or reality, because it doesn't. It
I
always
agree.
it always shows what the photographer wants to see, and that's what people should look at it for. If you want reality, go outside and stand in it.
I agree. That's a good one. That's a good one. There's hyper reality, which is interesting, but I think that he says it very well. And I think one of the things that I feel gives me the excuse, and I came upon this when I was doing not this book, but I think my last book was I decided that I write fiction or I portray fiction. So therefore, if I'm creating fiction which is not based on reality, then I have the ability and the authority to go anywhere I want as long as it's fiction. So I agree with that idea. I'm not creating something that's supposed to be reality at all. And as a
Right.
fictional photographer, I can create any fiction that I want and be okay with it. I can deal with violence, death, surrealism, almost anything. And I can defend it by just being a fictional writer, fictional photographer.
I was looking through my research of you, and there's two parts to this. One, the relationship that I kind of see between you and Helmut Newton, but in Helmut Newton's picture with the woman on her knees, the model on her knees, cleaning up blood, when I asked Phyllis about that, to me, it looked like she had just killed her husband. But Phyllis is like, what? It was about your knees. And I asked Helmut, how do you want to see a woman on her knees? And it didn't go deeper than that. That's what came up in me. That says more about me than it does about
Right.
Helmut. And
Exactly.
yeah, and your image of the heels on the top of the car, the scratches,
Oh, okay.
what
Yeah.
I see, never once did it go anywhere else, but this was an asshole ex-boyfriend, and she was going to destroy her car. And what you see is her leaning back and she's smoking, telling her friend she did it on the phone. Like, I never
Well, that
saw,
picture,
but that's what I see.
right. So each person has their own interpretation.
Right. But it's genius, I have to,
I
because
mean, that video piece of that picture, I mean, if you see the video piece that goes with that, which I can just segue into like
Yeah.
the 20 years of video work is very important, even for Vogue. Does the video idea come first or after? Or, I've been shooting with film cameras and using the stills for so long. So I flip back and forth of like film narrative or like shooting with actually cameras, like digital film cameras very often, especially with actors a long time ago, because they also look different when they're behind their own object or that they're photographed all the time. For me, using film cameras, they could perform much better. The lenses see them the way the film sees them, films do, which I preferred. So I never could understand why do you want to make an actor look like a model? Although a lot of actors, somebody like Nicole, I know she really loves being a model. For me, I always thought they would want to come in and be something deeper.
Some do. Some need a role because they don't know how to be themselves.
And Nicole knows how to be that very well.
And she'll be whoever. She has such great respect for photographers. She's never, I mean,
There's nobody that has more respect than Nicole.
no. And she will be directed by Helmut, by Penn, with no ego in it. That's what you can imagine an actress in front of Hitchcock, or, when models like Linda, everyone's talking about Linda, that Linda in front of, let's say, David Sims, who wasn't sold on her, she did a whole thing falling into the grass, kicking a soccer ball. Like, see, I can be yours too.
Right. Those are the great models. That's a whole other conversation. The Ambers, the Lindas, Trittini, Karen Elson, Murphy, they're like actresses.
Yeah. And so it's the same, the flip when an actress like Nicole can be like that. And I think it's being able to almost go into a space. They walk on set and they're a Stephen Klein woman. Like, they understand that and they're open to it, and they've learned how to get into that zone so that you can produce the best work that they've seen of themselves. You know what
I mean, and it was great when you talk about the Stephen Klein woman. I mean, I don't know exactly what it is, but the thing is, I remember I just signed with a new agent, and one of the things this agent said to me was, well, you need to really photograph women this way, like change the way my woman looks at my pictures was a really big criticism of how they wanted to work with me. And I remember Anna and I used to have a breakfast, I don't know, like 2, 3 times a year at Pastis. My studio used to be across the street on Gansford. So I went in and we had breakfast, and I just said to her straight up, I met with this agent, I won't say the name, and they said that I need to change the way my women look in my pictures. And Anna's quick reply was, but that's your woman. That's a Stephen Klein woman. Why would you ever change it? And that's where Anna was brilliant. She could have said, well, I agree. You have to be softer or this. But she was like, straight out of her mouth, like, why would you ever change?
Well, I just put into, now that Google has AI, what is the Stephen Klein woman? Cinematic and narrative. His photos tell a story, often with a dark, surreal, or even morbid narrative, akin to scenes from a film. Empowered and extreme, the women are presented in powerful, chic, and sometimes highly artificial and extreme scenarios. His work pushes boundaries, exploring themes of transgression, identity, and power through his subjects. Known for exceptional lighting and precise artful arrangements, even of mundane or dangerous objects. The essence, the Stephen Klein woman is not a single person, but a recurring archetype within his distinctive photographic universe, embodying strength, style, and a compelling narrative. I mean, it's interesting.
You don't fuck with those women.
Yeah, no, and definitely not yours. And that's what they always said about the difference between you and Helmet, was just that you pushed it even a bit farther than he did. Your woman wasn't just always powerful. The man was changed to be even less powerful.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. The
Like
woman
picture
wasn't just becoming the man's level. The man was diminishing as she
right.
grew. Yeah.
Like the picture in my book of Karen Elson with Tyson on his hands and knees picking up her keys.
Yeah.
I always like to use men in when I could in the pictures, because I always liked my women and my characters were powerful and they were dangerous, of course. And the men by nature was always the ones in power. I embraced the powerful women, and I actually know a lot of powerful women, and I can say truthfully that women can do so much more than a man can do.
Right.
And they can withstand a lot more. Women can have a lot more against them, and they do, to prove themselves. They've had a bigger fight in the game, and I always acknowledge that in my pictures. And I think it's a great thing.
number two in your book, the woman under the car.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then was Jeremy Renner, I'm just looking at the third image in the book, the Jeremy Renner story we did with Lara. Was he on crutches?
No, I had to dismantle him a little bit because
that was genius. So what we just talked about, looking at that image, like I was like, wait, did he have a hurt foot? And then
he's broken and she's like totally together.
Yes.
And he did get broken, actually. It's so weird because you think about what happened to him. I mean, Jeremy was so great on that shoot, but like you think about what happened later.
Yeah.
I got in that terrible accident.
And then the Karen Elson is, because I have them small here, with the robot with her hands. Is that Karen with the black hair? And she's,
oh, you have a funny story about that with Karen.
But even she has, that's a power. There's never an image where the woman's not fully, even with the robots, when the robots are hosing the lawn. Like it's not the robots are taking over the women.
Right.
Yeah.
Not yet. Yes.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But it's true. Your woman is always, even in front of a horse who's far bigger, the woman is always not just at the forefront, but in the power seat, or you feel it. You feel it. Giselle, with the leather skirt and leather bustier, just what's she in front of? Sorry.
By a big trailer,
Yeah.
a big
Yeah.
trailer.
Yeah.
It's also what makes a great picture. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I always say too, it's probably for studying painting, there's always a foreground, background, middle ground.
Mhm.
There's always like a vanishing point. There's like a sense of how the person is composed on a page that inherently goes into my work. It's all part of the strategic planning of a picture.
Yeah. Provocation, purpose, collapse. So the quote is, provocation without purpose is just noise. My work has always been about control and collapse. That's such a strong distinction. Provocation with purpose. Helmut Newton wanted readers angry. You seem to want them awake. How do you
Yes.
know when an image crosses from shock into revelation? Another quote, the real is disturbing, sometimes erotic, sometimes sublime, but it has to be honest, even when it's artificial. So when does honesty look like an artificial image?
Yeah, we're gonna have to think about that for a minute. I'm just honest.
Yeah.
Um, that's a difficult one.
So your work always has been about control and collapse. It's provocation.
Oh, I understand.
With purpose.
Okay.
And that's what, and provocation doesn't have to be negative. For some reason, people think provoking can lead to amazing things. Provoking a question leads to an answer. It's provoking something to happen.
Right. It's like in a painting, like you have to construct something and then question it and somehow deconstruct certain parts of it, because it's like putting too many things in a picture, or too many things can look like a bit of a mess in a way. And so it needs order, in order of how somebody sees something. Ultimately, an image that will provoke somebody, to me, will grab their attention, it will grab my attention. I like a picture that I'll do and I'll take it home with me at night and want to examine it and look at it more. That's the idea of provocation for me,
Right.
calling attention to look at this. And then, like I said, you remove paint, you remove colors, try this, try that. It's you construct and deconstruct all the time. And again, the difference is I'm not involved with like ethical issues or anything. For instance, I used to be with Pater and not shoot fur, but as a photographer, there's a part of me, even though I do fiction, I have to report some truth within the fiction. So I think that what one's duty is to ride that line where there is some truth to it, because it's something I take in everything that I experience on a daily basis. And it may not be something that somebody wants to look at, but again, there is a truth to it. And I may elaborate on it and make it theatrical, but still I'm talking about the truth, and it emerges through creating these images.
Yeah, not to bring it back to Nick Knight, but because he studies so much, he's so specific about truth, reality. It made me look through my box of pictures and my baby book, and I start questioning all of those pictures.
Yeah.
Were me and my sister laughing? I don't remember being happy in childhood, personally.
Right. That's all a lie too.
Yeah, they said, say cheese, look at me. And I looked, and also with my daughter, if she doesn't want to smile, that's her reality, and that should be her memory, not me making her smile, so that when she looks back at her book, she thinks that day that she was happy, right?
Right. Well, it goes back to when I first found out that a lot of the war pictures from World War II and everything were all staged for press. Obviously, actors were staged with women, homosexual, gay, actors and actresses were staged with straight men. It's like all staging. And people think in the 20s and 30s that those pictures weren't heavily retouched. The truth was, Katharine Hepburn was a lesbian. She had really bad skin, But people have that memory of looking at those pictures thinking she was this person. She played strong characters, was a great actress, but there was retouching back then. So again, when retouching or digital retouching became very big in the 90s, late 80s and 90s, and there was like this anti-retouching that went on at one point. You probably know the years better than I do of what's real and what's not. None of it's real. Whether you retouch or not retouch, my feeling is that unless somebody like Patti Smith or Prince, and they even control the way they look, when they walked into my studio and I photographed them in their own clothes, just the way they are, to me, that's closest to the truth.
Right.
But I think as soon as you take a hand, touch their face, touch their hair, or change the way clothes are, you're immediately reconstructing who they are.
And they, as performers, maybe not Patti Smith, but definitely Prince and Beyonce as Sasha Fierce, they don't live their lives as Sasha Fierce. You know, we see them on stage. Who are we photographing and who do we want to see and who are we allowed to see and who do they have to show, right?
Right.
You have a public persona, and that's what makes it sometimes complicated, because we can be, and we as me or people at Vogue or the reader, be bummed out when they don't show up as our preconceived notion of someone. But if we want honesty, then it's going there when they wake up and, you know,
Exactly.
seeing who they are. So maybe we think we want to see the truth, but a lot of times we don't. We want to
Exactly,
see
but I
what
mean, I
we
think
want to
even
see. Yeah.
take the Avedon picture, for
I'm just
instance,
gonna-
Marilyn. In the edit, one chooses to show or one chooses to edit, you're depicting them the way you want them to be depicted, like the sad portrait of Marilyn that Avedon did. Or the idea that Avedon would say that the eyes are the window of the soul. I don't really believe that. That's not my truth or my idea of the eyes show somebody's soul. I made numerous portraits of people with cut throats where I actually slit their throats and people think they're quite violent. But to me, it was like, it was my statement of saying like the true portrait doesn't exist. And what I did is I cut their throats to show, like in the Avedon portrait, it's like the eyes were the window of the soul. To me, my portrait is cutting somebody's flesh to see underneath the flesh was the idea of seeing into a person is seeing their flesh cut.
I mean, when I was reading about that, when I guess you were talking about a book and someone asked a question, and I think the Times wrote about it, like, don't ask the question if you're not ready for the answer. But that makes perfect sense in my mind. Like, what's beneath?
Right. And the thing is, we all have a context. I think we've all looked at images and we look at images every day and we've looked at images in magazines. And I think they all play a role in what you create now. You know what I mean? They run through your mind. It's like a big index of images. One of my observations about photography today is they're not trying to tear down any walls. They're just looking at what was done. And I feel like, why would somebody, for instance, Penn was very radical in the 60s for stripping away the image of the photographers that did lifestyle pictures, elevated lifestyles of like Slim Aarons and all those photographers of that period where they were kind of creating idealistic, rich lifestyles of society people in Vogue. And then what happened was Penn radically took out the backgrounds and took out the lifestyle element. It was very sharp and kind of reduced it to like the element of what it was. He looked at it under a microscope. Avedon, on the other hand, went away from lifestyle pictures of idealistic people that were done previously for him working at Bazaar and Vogue. And he reduced it to just the movement based on Mukasey. That movement, he reduced it and took it out of lifestyle in that sense and brought it to studio. But what's happened for the last 20 or 40 years, people just adapt the technique. Not to say that I've shot people on a simple background, but my point being is that what Penn and Avedon did at that time was very, very radical. And so I ask the question now, who is doing something that's radically opposing what's been done in the past?
Yeah. So I'm going to go to collaboration, the Vogue woman. This is a quote from you. Every project begins with pure intent to communicate ideas, to ask questions, some answered, some left lingering. And this is funny because, as Nick says, a great image gets your attention and asks a question, and then it lets the viewer finish the answer, right? And this is exactly what you're talking about. Some answered, some left lingering. Phyllis Posnick told me she and you worked like dancers. It was a dance. And that if the woman in the picture looked like a Vogue woman, you could push it anywhere. What was that collaboration like in practice? She told me the story about Carly, the ADHD, and how none of the fashion was working. And then you guys saw this dress, and it was the last one you tried, and it just worked. And you realized that was one of the building onto this.
Well, that was after like 10 different wigs and 10 different dresses, but luckily we had only one picture to do that day, but it sometimes happens at the last minute. Or like the idea of when we did the meat picture, Trentini was on the way to the airport and Phyllis called her back to say, let's do one that's nude. So that's where Phyllis is brilliant. In regards to the narrative, what comes to mind is the story I did with Grace on Suburbicon, which was really based on George Clooney's movie. And Grace had called me and said that Vogue wanted to, I think Grace had heard about the film, and it was a really great film, beautifully photographed. And it took place in the 60s about a family from the South that moves to Los Angeles, and they're basically in a white neighborhood. And what goes on has been a lot of films, probably in the last 5 to 10 years, also based on this theme and based on history. So Suburbicon was really based on a George Clooney movie. I hadn't seen the movie at the time. And so we were looking for like a track home, 60s, and we couldn't find one. Obviously, it seems like it'd be so easy to find, but some of the most common things are very difficult to find. I don't know if it came from Anna or it came from Grace. I think Grace knew about it.
Grace, yeah. And she complains because I couldn't get a screener.
Right. I didn't see the movie until after because I knew the colorist that was doing the movie. And it really was beautifully filmed and a great film. So it started out like the idea. I had the theme of family from the South moving to Los Angeles and some of the challenges that they faced, living in a white neighborhood. And for me, the ultimate, at that time, I loved Laura. Laura Stone is still one of my favorites. I don't have one favorite, but Laura is one of my favorites. And I always find her to be unique in the sense of she never wants to do anything in a picture. She doesn't really like try anything, but she's always brilliant. She's effortless and great in that way. And then we cast real actors. I was watching American Horror and loved Finn. So I suggested Finn. And then there was the other actor that was in it, Trey, that was in my friend Lee Daniels' Empire. And I was watching Empire at the time. So a lot of those things bleed into my work through what I'm looking at and watching at the time.
Yeah. Well,
and
Grace
what models I work at.
But Grace, when I had her on, said, quote, he shot it like a movie, and I had a feeling that he actually shot it on a movie camera and gave us stills, but he says he didn't do that, but it's a set.
I did shoot it as a film as well.
Yeah. And
it was a set, like that was a painted backdrop.
And that she said that Lara would come out and put the dinner on the table and Joan would put her coat on.
I had to do the whole action.
Yeah. She says Mary built this house and everything. It was just a house with a thing holding it up. She put fake grass in front of it and a barbecue. And Lara would get up, walk to the car, put her coat on, and then come back. And she would bring the chicken to the table, but she still thinks, when I looked at it, that seemed, because their expressions were definitely not, it's brilliant.
That's the only story that I included in my book. It wasn't every picture, but that's the only story I included in my book that was the full almost a full story, like a narrative, because I thought it was good to see the whole series of.
But they were in the zone. Like Laura, it was the first fashion story I've seen where they weren't, it felt like Laura wasn't thinking, how's my angle? She's the woman. She's
Right,
the
but then you
wife.
have to. The thing is that if you set the stage correctly,
Yeah.
people will perform with the right
Yeah.
direction.
I mean, uh, it 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 it, it
I love
really,
Klein from American Horror. For me, it
yeah,
was just a treat to meet him. See, I need to get excited about the little things too, because these are two actors that I was watching the show every week. I
yeah.
was like, wow, I get to photograph them in a real story with my favorite models at the moment. So again, it's like getting all your friends to go out with you one night, or like putting people together for a party. It's a little more than that, but there's always the doubt that's in your head. Is this working?
But you created, like, I can see so much from the dinner scene when the neighbors are sitting, like every little movement. I don't think I've worked with a photographer that seems more in that story a director first than like you captured
Well, I think of myself, right.
a
Okay.
director for, I mean, I think a director first
I do
because
approach my work like a director.
yeah,
I storyboard it like a director.
yeah,
And I give directions like a director.
yeah.
I break down my pictures like a director.
Yeah, like even how he's holding the fork, Finn, every little detail of the motion. I think
Well, I
that's
don't think I go to that detail, but I think that's
but
probably more in the edit, what frame I choose to.
right, which is a huge, just as important too, what you're showing, because that's what we see is what you're choosing to show us. Right?
Correct. Which brought me back again, the Avedon picture of Marilyn. You can depict anything you want by how you choose a picture after,
Right.
which can be an accent. One thing that I do want to say in everything that I've done is very important is not violating anybody on set in any way, or any kind of violation through maybe a mistake of a picture. Like, for instance, the pictures of Brad with his pants down. I've never had anybody unwillingly do anything in my pictures by any kind of coercion, or like, I need this for me, or I need you to
Oh
be
no.
provocative. I'm very respectful of everybody I work with because of their hard work, and anybody that's on set, I do respect that. Although people probably think that I abuse
Oh
that
no.
power.
Never. I've heard that on other people, but never you. I think celebrities want to seek you out because they can push themselves in a safe place.
Right.
You know what I mean? They can
Uh-huh.
create something, a dangerous role in a safe place. You know, I think you can only get vulnerable in a picture when you feel safe to do so.
Right.
Don't you?
I think that's a really great point, because in order to get the best out of everybody, I'm even talking about the nail person on set, you have to make people feel loved and safe. If people feel safe, or even our children, if they don't feel safe, they'll never do anything for you. And once people feel safe on your set, that's everything.
That's when they can open up. That's
Exactly.
when the next step happens.
When somebody's guarded, you'll never get anything. So everything's so important in the preparation. Like we were talking about why sometimes I've had nobody on set, because you don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable with anything, including the way they look. I probably would sacrifice an actor or model being very unhappy with the way they look for a picture, because I care that
They
much
can feel
about the people I work. I'm not just out to get my picture. I'm
No,
not
for
out to
sure.
just get that. I would never want anybody to feel not as excited as I am about what we're doing.
Absolutely. So then, before legacy, the X-ray, let's do fashion as cultural memory. This is your quote. Fashion photography isn't disposable. It's cultural memory. Time capsules of fear, desire, aspiration, and delusion. What do these images gathered together in this book say about how we imagined ourselves from 2000 to 2019? What surprised you when you saw them side by side? Do you think magazines or any platform today still allow for that kind of collective imagination?
The interesting thing about the collection of work in this book was surprising to me, because it wasn't really an original book that I wanted to do. In my mind, I thought American Vogue was my most commercial work and not work that I would ever want to do a book on. Following my other book at Fiden, they asked me to do another book that was more commercial, and I suggested all the Vogue work, including Italian Vogue, French Vogue, British Vogue, and American Vogue. When I showed them several edits, they found them all too strong. So in trying to create a more, what they would call at that point, more palatable by the public, I came out at the last minute saying, what about American Vogue work? But even that didn't go well. So that's what got me to American Vogue work.
Yeah.
And then when I finally came up with my final edit, somebody came in, I'm not sure who it was, but I would ask people that I trust, editors. And when I looked at the work, it kind of looked, in a way, of the future. There was a section when I was editing that was calling futurism, and not all the work. But the thing is, I thought, as far as culture goes, I feel like we are taking from the culture of the now and taking culturally things from designers, the models of the now. Those are our players in our theater, but then creating something that we have no control of comes out as being something. But I feel like if something's too much of the time, it won't transcend time.
Right. Absolutely. They do feel future for some, like I see, and I wouldn't be able to pinpoint why it's a feeling, right? Like even the model with all the babies, like there's just something that it's future, it's past, it's now, it's anytime, it's every
Right.
time.
But don't you feel, Jill, you'll dismiss pictures, or they'll be more sentimental if you go, oh,
Remember
culturally,
when,
I remember that thing from the 60s or 70s or 80s. Those are the things you remember, the films like The Damned or like The Conformist. Two of my favorite films that came out of my head, but they had amazing style. But behind the style was a very, very compelling story, you know?
and that's why I feel like even when you did that W with Brad and Angelina, or the, the one we just talked about with Finn, when that film came out, even when you put it in a time, right? Like we recognize what it, you twist it so it doesn't belong in that time. Like, you know what I
Well,
mean?
that's good. I don't know. It's good that you say that, but
Yeah.
sometimes I look at those pictures and I go, are they too much of?
No.
Okay.
Because that's where the Stephen Klein twist happens. You're definitely not looking at Life magazine like there's something, but let's do Legacy and the X-ray. Okay, they're not mirrors, you say. They're X-rays. Look closely. Not everything is what it seems. And this is the intro to your book. So everyone listening, this is coming out when the book is ready to be in your hands. They're not mirrors, they're X-rays. Look closely. Not everything is what it seems. When people look closely, what do you want them to see? What truth hides inside the seduction? You've said fashion as its best should disturb the surface. For 20 years, Vogue gave you that space, not W, not Vogue Italia, but American Vogue, the most commercial magazine. What does that say about that era and about Anna Wintour's appetite for danger?
Oh, well, the thing is, for me to have a picture in Vogue supported by Anna Wintour, one image in Vogue was so much more powerful than doing 30 pages in Italian Vogue. How it was placed within the magazine, I think, was also something one considers when they're doing work, how it appears in the group and who's that group. The thing is, I always thought of Anna like danger. There is an element of just being who she is. She's very risky. She's very outspoken, but she's very clear. She cuts to the chase, as you know. But again, that reflects in maybe in my image making, not so much in my personality. The idea of comparing a mirror to an X-ray, a mirror is just a pure reflection of what you think it is. X-rays goes deeper.
Right. Because the mirror, you can make yourself up, and the reflection is going to be whoever you are trying to be. The X-ray is who you are.
Correct.
Right.
So I'm not trying to make a reflection of somebody. I'm trying to
Right.
create
Go
something
deeper.
go deeper.
It's
Not
not just
necessarily of the
surface.
subject I'm photographing.
Right.
Could be the whole story, or because I think like a director, it could be the collection of pictures in Suburbicon, or it could be that one image, but it has to be powerful. I love X-rays because they're black and white,
Yeah, you're
and they're
right.
to the point.
Yep. Yep. It shows you it's not what you want to see. It's
Right.
what's there. And when people look closely and just even being able to see it, you have to sit with each, right? Like even with the Alexander McQueen portrait, his eyes, like where they're looking, that's where I go when I see that image. He's not looking at us. And I don't know in the image that he's, to me, he's not telling me he knows I'm looking at him. He's not even, he's
Right.
inside his head and he's not looking not at me because he doesn't want to confront me. He is not even acknowledging that I'm looking at him. There's a lot of depth to these.
Right. I mean, I knew Lee really, really well. We did a lot of work together. And now that you talk about that picture, I mean, instinctively I chose that one, but Lee never really, I mean, I guess it's that ambiguity, even though he had a very clear vision of what he was creating, he never really felt good about himself. He was like,
It looks like he's doubting a
yes,
decision. Yes, that's exactly
right.
what the expression is.
Yeah, like he never, and he really
Second
never really,
guessing,
he
second
never really
guessing.
felt good about himself. At the end of the day, we all have to come home to who we are. And also what I've learned, which goes into the next question, I think, what's illusion and what's not. The thing is, we all need to come home at the end of the day and face ourselves. And although my work is very important and I take it very seriously, I do feel like it's as important for me to be awake and aware and have a fulfilling life as a person. And I think you know from the business, like how you've seen that people have put all their energy into work only and end up
Identity.
empty-handed.
And their identity, so that when
Their
he,
identity is in their work.
yes,
And that's all they talk about.
yes,
So like for me, it was very important at some point, even though I'm a really hard worker, but I've learned to study and understand more about myself and people around me is equally as important as the work, because the work is just the work. I'm just doing the best job I can, being like a funnel to express myself. But on the other hand, we all have to face ourselves and what kind of people we are. Hence, what's going on in the fashion business and so forth. To me, I feel like my responsibility is to set the standards high, but also who am I as a human being
yeah,
is very important to me. And the biggest compliment I have, I think, is like when somebody is very interested in a picture or they appreciate what you do or they get inspired by what you do. That's a great thing, but we can't live on that.
right.
Can't live on accolades. And to me, it's like when something's done, who cares who likes it or who doesn't?
Well, I'm sure. And Donna, I know with Kabbalah back in the day and Demi Moore, Demi would say to me on set, my stomach is hurting. And I know it's because of the energy you're feeling. And I said, yeah, my stomach's hurting because it was stress. And she point to say, I don't read reviews. That means positive reviews cannot change how I feel about myself. It cannot even make me smile because if I'm going to allow that, the negative reviews have to do, it allows them to do the same.
And that's a very Kabbalistic
But
thought of like the idea is like, you always have to remember if you're seeking recognition for the work, people that I know very well would say to me sometimes like, you're so popular and this or that. And I'll be like, that was never my intention. But the thing is, a Kabbalistic idea is that if we're only seeking recognition and our happiness and our vitality and our life is surrounded by being acknowledged as being good, and then we go down when we're not acknowledged or we don't have that same kind of recognition, then we're just like puppets of the illusionary world,
Right.
where the illusionary world is only 1% of who we are. So like, again, I could say to you, like, anybody that takes the work so seriously, get a life.
Right. No,
Get a life. And like,
yeah.
you know what
And
I
I'm
mean? Like,
sure, like
the
with
ultimate work
you,
is on ourselves.
yes.
The work we're producing is an extension to give back.
And I'm sure when you had Ace, you saw a change. Like, I know for me, after having Story, when I walked back into Vogue, things I hadn't seen and words I hadn't heard, suddenly I was hearing and seeing because it changes you when you have a child that now your actions, it just puts you in a different mindset. So things I kind of might have had blinders on, I was seeing clearly. And you're making decisions for the both of you. And even with what you're accepting and pay cuts and magazines not having the budgets, or at least not having the budgets for the work.
It's like
Yeah.
95, my whole thing. I mean, it's just the truth.
Yeah.
How does somebody live in New York when they get a 95% or 90% pay cut? It's very difficult with a child. So like
And editorial was not
reality.
even paying anyway. So it's like,
That's reality. Now they don't pay at all. I just spoke to somebody on the phone, and people don't understand when we work for magazines, it's basically for free.
or you're paying. It was
Well, yeah,
always for
I've
free.
done that.
It was
I've
always for
paid.
free. It was
I
always for
paid,
free.
and then, but sometimes when my things would get very elaborate, I'd end up spending a lot of my own
Yeah,
money.
of course. Yeah, out of pocket.
I find it interesting to work within budgets, but it's very strict. Magazines have no money, but also that means that photographers make no money from magazines. We're literally doing it for free. That means everybody on that team.
Right.
I find sometimes the magazine, I'm not saying anybody in particular, I feel like they don't say like, thank you, or the appreciation that so many people in this business have done with a lot of heart and soul. It's dismissed very easily.
No, agree. So if this book closes one chapter, what's the next visual rebellion for you? What aren't you seeing in culture that you're hungry to create?
No, that's a really good question. I have to think about that for a second. I think where everything begins with me is somebody coming to me with a seed. For instance, when you work with an actor, they can say something about a painting. So my work will continue forever because I find that as long as I have a seed of an idea, I can elaborate on that idea. I feel like my work in itself paves the way. So I can probably answer that in the next 10 years.
Right.
But I can't answer it now.
Yep.
But I think it all begins with new creative
That
people.
inspire you too. You have curiosity. So it's
Yes, I'm very curious.
So it's like, it could be looking outside right now. And you're right, though. You do pave the way.
Yeah, it's like sometimes I don't even like somebody came to me with an idea about glamour. And I was like, why are we going to go back to glamour right now? And sometimes the idea, I don't even like them, but I find them like problems to solve.
Yes, yes.
And through those problems, that's why I think editors are so important, because I'm not just doing what I want to do. I'm planning a story to do with Irina, who I love, and we've worked on things together. And she has a very clear idea of a story. It maybe wouldn't be a story I thought of, but the fact is that she planted that seed in me now. I'm going to bring it to life in the way I can see it. So it's like creating movies. I get handed scripts and I have to figure out what the clothes are, where they're staged, what the action is. So I really approach it like that. So like, what is the next movie? What is the next thing? It's based on what things you do, and it could take you anywhere. That's the exciting part about it.
And I think that's why Anna would write your name down on our schedule, because she didn't know sometimes what to do with it, but she knew she wanted it to go through the Stephen Klein, like, giving it to you and then letting you run.
Right. And the thing is, she never knew what she was going to get. And maybe that's the exciting part.
Exciting, yeah.
Because I don't know what I'm going to give, but you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. So I usually do these rapid fire,
Oh
But
boy, I'm not good at these.
no,
But
no, no. It's
let's
just
try it.
it was just this or that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to give you my usual. This one, ChatGPT helped me with because he knows more about you than
I know.
me.
He knows more about me than I know about myself.
Exactly. So, truth or illusion?
Oh, totally illusion. Illusion for sure.
Okay.
It's so much more fun.
Okay. Film still or surveillance tape?
I would say film still.
Okay. Meat locker or motel parking lot?
Meat locker. 'Cause I live
Robot.
near the repacking center.
Yeah. Robot in a garden or horse in a ballroom?
Horse in the ballroom.
Blood or bruise?
Oh, I prefer blood because it's a better red.
Helmut Newton or Guy Bourdin?
I love both. I think they're both great, great visionary photographers. I would probably say Guy Bourdin.
Okay, this is a brilliant one that Claude came up with. Unlimited budget with restrictions or no budget with total freedom?
Ooh, no budget with total freedom.
So, Stephen, thank you for letting us step into your world, this psychological theater between beauty and danger. Stephen Klein Vogue isn't just a book of photographs. It's an X-ray of a time when fashion dared to disturb the surface. And you, more than anyone, made sure it stayed dangerous.
It wasn't intentional. And don't forget, it wasn't intentional, but also don't forget the name of the book. The whole idea is the first thing that came to mind was getting away with murder, which was like, how much could I get away with Anna accepting my pictures, which was kind of a fun and games with me.
No, and what was funny is because both Phyllis and Grace say it, and it was so interesting when I had Grace on. I think someone in your office told you that she goes, I can't say he's real because that's kind of the opposite of what he is, but he's incredibly soft and kind, which is surprising.
He always says that.
Which is surprising. He has a kid who he adores, and he's very caring, and he loves animals. He doesn't really like romantic things, and yet a lot of his pictures, even in their kind of brutalness, are romantic. But she was like, I just can't say Stephen's real. It's very interesting. No, but you didn't.
Oh, really? I don't know what that meant, but real.
I
guess
think
I'm
you
leaving.
just
I'm living
have
my own theater.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. So now Sammy.
Oh, is Sammy there? So we're off. We can just
Yeah,
talk
we're
normal,
good.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Should I call you back?
Yeah, call me back.
All right.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye.
Okay, that's our show. Thanks for listening to Going Rogue. And be sure to like and subscribe. Today's show is produced by me and Maddie Rosenberg at Radio Free Rhinecliff with assistance from Maddie Kelly. Special thanks to David Vo for our great graphics and Taras Romanov for our epic theme music. See you next Friday.